There's a lot of noise in the ERP market. What is an ERP and what is not an ERP is always going to be debatable. What is also going to be debatable is which one is ERP company and which one is not an ERP company. But for you as a customer, you need to know what is going to be the financial standing of the company and how bright the future is for an ERP vendor. And that's exactly what we are going to talk about today. Hello everyone, my name is Sam Gupta and I am principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is an independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. As part of Elevate IQ, we focus on anything and everything that happens prior to ERP selection, along with ERP selections, which is going to be business process re-engineering, defining multi-system architecture, enterprise architecture, information architecture, any sort of ERP project recoveries, and the ERP implementation. So let's go back to today's topic. When we look at the ERP market, there is going to be a clear authority. When we look at the top 2 or 3 vendors, that is typically not debatable. But when we look at the vendors that are going to be after those top 2 or 3, it is always subject to debate. Now, the purpose of this video is not to recommend or endorse any vendors. You should be looking at your requirements, which vendor or the solution is going to be the right fit for your need. But this video at least will give you some guidance in terms of which are the vendors that are going to be doing well and that will continue to do well, so that you don't end up selecting a product that is going to end up being acquired or the vendor is going to be out of business. Now, to develop this list, we have worked on a specific criteria, and there are 5 or 6 different variables that we have considered in defining this list. So number 1 is going to be the overall market share. The way we have defined the market share is going to be looking at the number of customers as well as size of those customers. The higher the market share, the higher the company is going to rank on our list. Now, the second factor that we have considered is the growth potential or the recent funding. So higher the valuation, higher the funding, the higher they are likely to rank on our list, even though their current revenue may not be as higher in the market. The number 3 is going to be the product and acquisition strategy. And the acquisition strategy is going to be in the form of what are the products that they are acquiring in the market? Are they filling any specific hole from the ERP category, or they are acquiring some of the technical products that may not have impact on the ERP market share? The higher the acquisition strategy is going to be aligned with the ERP market, the higher the company is going to rank on our list. Now, the fourth factor we have looked at is going to be the cloud nativeness of the product. How deep is the cloud native functionality natively as part of the product? If that is going to be part of add-on or the white label product, we have not considered all of that. This is the review of the vendor's core capabilities, how cloud native they are off the shelf as from the code owned by the ERP vendor. So the higher and deeper cloud native functionality you have, the higher you are going to rank on our list, because even if you may be deploying this code base on-prem, the cloud native code base, it's not legacy, it's not old, it's going to be far more efficient. So the vendors that are higher in their cloud native capabilities, we have ranked them higher on our list. The other factor that we have looked at, the overall product mix. Okay, can you support different the architecture models? For example, can you support best of breed and full suite? If you can support both of that, for example, if you look at SAP has many different products in their portfolio that assist the best of breed architecture in the enterprise space. Sometimes their ERP offerings may look leaner, but they have capabilities to deliver on the entire architecture when the companies might want to go best of breed, and that is going to be super applicable in case of the enterprise space. So we have looked at the overall product composition, and if they are positioned as the ERP vendor, just like the way SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, Infor, Epicor are going to have their strategy to be to support different business model, different target market. Now, the company ownership is equally important as well. If the company is going to be owned by private equity, the strategy might change after 5 years, 3 years, because the company is going to be sold and the new owner is going to be there. They might have different thoughts, they might have different strategy. So, and by the way, if the company is going to be owned by a corporate investor, for example, the company that has their strategic interest in winning the deal using the ERP portfolio, then obviously they are likely to grow higher as compared to the other companies that are simply trying to sell the company after 5 years. So if the company ownership is going to be aligned with the corporate investor or one of the company that has deep authority in the market, they rank higher on our list. The Odoo is a product that competes in the QuickBooks segment. It is not yet as robust in its capabilities when you compare the deeper industry or the operational capabilities with Acumatica or NetSuite, but it is a great product when, let's say, the founders or the startups are starting on a product and they cannot really afford the consulting dollars. That's where Odoo is making a lot of impact in the market. The startup founders, especially in the e-commerce community, industry 4.0 community, these companies are highly technically savvy. They really appreciate what Odoo brings to the table. Okay, after receiving the funding of $25 million. So now, when you look at the $2.3 billion valuation, that is going to be, closer to your Deltec. It is going to be closer to your QAD. QAD was valued closer to that. So obviously, Odoo is the player that is going to be here to stay. By the way, Odoo has a lot of different offerings. So not all the offerings are relevant to the ERP market, but they definitely compete in the ERP deals, and they are always they are there at least in the smaller segment. So Odoo is the vendor that is going to be here. Now, whether they keep attempting the consumerized market and really disrupt the QuickBook play, because that's where their play is if you want to grow the product this way. But let's say if they are trying to grow their operational capabilities and trying to compete with other cloud native vendors, then obviously they are going to be participating in much bigger deals. For these reasons, Odoo is at number 10 on our list. Now, number 9 on our list is going to be Acumatica. Acumatica is one of the cloud native vendors that we have in the market. The other cloud native vendors are already with one of the larger ERP vendors such as Oracle and Sage. When NetSuite was sold, it was sold for roughly $9.3 billion. Okay, Sage Intacct was sold for close to $800 million. There was a significant discrepancy overall in terms of the valuation of these two companies. Acumatica is not closer to any of these companies, NetSuite or Sage Intacct, in terms of the number of customers. Sage Intacct has higher number of customers, NetSuite has far higher number of customers, but Acumatica is operationally closer to NetSuite as a product to Sage Intacct. So it's very likely that Acumatica is probably going to be receiving similar valuation as NetSuite, and if this gets acquired by one of the larger ERP vendors or one of the corporate investors, then Acumatica is going to be making a lot of impact in the future. That's why Acumatica lands at number 9 on our list. Now, number 8 is a tie, because the products that we have at number 8 are similar in nature. You have products such as QAD, you have Plex, you have products such as Deltec and Unit 4. They are all under $1 billion in revenue. their corporate strategy, the way they approach the market is very different. They are focused on a specific market vertical. They just have one product. They don't have the ERP strategy the way SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, Infor, Epicor are going to have. They cannot serve different audiences. So right now, we don't know where they are going to end up, whether they are going to become an enterprise software company similar to your SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, or they are going to be acquired by one of the corporate investors or the larger manufacturing companies, just the way Infor got acquired, and they will decide the fate of these products. So while these products and vendors are great, there is not clear consensus in terms of where they will be in the ERP market and what place they will get once we have a clear strategy for these companies, what they are going to do with these products. Now, Plex is an exception, and the reason why it is an exception is because it is owned by Rockwell Automation now. As we know, Rockwell Automation has huge authority in the industry 4.0 community, and their goal is going to be to fill their strategic holes so that they can sell a lot more control system applications, the industry 4.0 equipments, as part of Plex. So if they try to develop the mixed mode manufacturing capabilities, just the way your Infor and Epicor is going to have, the Plex could become the mainstream vendor, and they might be competing with these larger vendors in the larger deals. They don't compete with these guys. As of today, they might have a play a little bit, but they are not there overall in terms of the depth of their capabilities. That's why the QAD, Plex, Unit 4, and Deltek are at number 8. Now, number 7 is IFS. Even though IFS is not really in the $1 billion plus club yet, they are still closer to the $500 million revenue. It's higher than most of their peers. That is going to be QAD, Plex, and Deltek and Unit 4, or maybe closer. But they are still not as high in revenue compared to your Sage, Epicor, Infor. Obviously, the other larger vendors are going to be higher in revenue. But when we look at IFS, IFS has a very different product. It's very focused, just like your Plex, your QAD. It targets very specific market, but at the same time, IFS is owned by a private equity firm that also owns Acumatica, and there is a chance that these companies might come together and they might form a company which is going to be, which there is a potential that may be far bigger than Infor or Epicor. And by the way, the only challenge they are going to face there is IFS is positioned for slightly more airline ecosystem, the field service centric industries. Acumatica is designed more for the product centric industries. So there is no clear migration path the way other ERP companies are going to approach, where they have a smaller product and then companies graduate to slightly bigger product. But in case of IFS and Acumatica combination, that is going to be a challenge. So we don't know at this point of time whether Acumatica is really going to grow and become one of the largest product that is going to be similar to your Oracle Cloud ERP or SAP S4HANA, or it might be positioned more for the SMB space, just like NetSuite, and IFS may develop a slightly deeper capabilities for the product-centric companies as well. That is yet to play, but that's the reason why IFS is at number 7 on our list. Now, number 6 is the company called Epicor. The reason why Epicor is at number 6 on our list is because Epicor has far streamlined product portfolio, far refined product strategy. Their acquisition strategy is very well aligned in creating something like Infor, creating like something like SAP. That's what they have been doing. They don't win in as large account as SAP or Oracle or Infor for that matter, but they have been doing really well in the tiny spaces where the micro vertical expertise is going to be required. Epicor traditionally has focused on the retail, distribution, and manufacturing, and they have had equal focus there. Now, with the Bright Pearl acquisition of Sage, there is a chance that Sage Intacct might acquire a lot of retail market share, And NetSuite already had a lot of retail exposure, and Acumatica was a very strong product for the retail verticals, and they have been stealing a lot of market share from Epicor. There is a chance that they might continue steal this market share from Epicor, but Epicor has a very different strategy because the verticals that they like to play in, it's very, very hard for Acumatica or NetSuite or Sage Intacct to compete in those verticals. So we are going to see what Epicor is going to do, whether they are going to focus more on the manufacturing or they will keep deepening their capabilities in all the verticals, and that's what they have been doing from their acquisition strategy. And for those reasons, Epicor lands at number 6 on our list. Now, number 5 is the company called Sage. And the reason why Sage is on our list is because it has higher revenue than Epicor, lower revenue than Infor. Sage also has very clear product strategy in the form of Sage Intacct. They have acquired Sage Intacct very timely and has the cloud native capabilities, of one of the 3 leading cloud native products. And their Sage X3 product is very well positioned for the specific industries where they don't really face as much competition as the other products. And they might be able to do slightly better than some of the larger vendors, especially if these companies may not require the globalized and localized capabilities. So Sage X3 and Sage Intacct combined makes Sage very strong ERP vendor. That's the reason why Sage lands at number 5 on our list of the top ERP vendors. Now, number 4 is Infor. The reason why Infor is number 4 is because it has the highest revenue among all of the smaller ERP vendors, but is still lower than the other ERP vendors such as SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft. Infor also has a very streamlined product portfolio and the product strategy. They have several products such as Infor WFM, which is going to be comparable to your SAP SuccessFactors, and they can build the best of breed architecture without requiring another vendor. All of this best of breed architecture, for example, utilizing the Infor Nexus, Infor WFM, it's going to be your Infor Rhythm for e-commerce, it's going to be Burst for analytics, the Infor OS for the iPaaS. So now Infor has the complete portfolio to be an ERP company and serve different market segments that some of the other smaller vendors don't have. For example, IFS, QAD, Plex, they don't have the similar exposure overall from the product mix perspective. And that's why Infor is positioned as number 4 on the top ERP vendors on our list. Now, number 3 is Microsoft. The reason why Microsoft is number 3 is because, number 1, they are significantly ahead overall in terms of their cloud native capabilities of their 2 leading products, which is going to be Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central as well as Microsoft Dynamics F&O. But if you look at the product, pay close attention to the product. A large chunk of the product is still very legacy code. It's not really translated in the modern cloud native architecture, but that is going to be applicable for most legacy products. They have only translated only a fragment of the product. The entire product is not really cloud native. The other challenge with Microsoft is the large market share of Microsoft is still in the CRM space, in the technical space, in the infrastructure space, and they don't really have their model as refined as it would be for an ERP company. And Microsoft is also, number 2 leader in the CRM category. Microsoft competes head to head with Salesforce in the CRM space. So wherever Salesforce is going to be present, Salesforce is going to make sure that Microsoft does not get into those deals. So not only you have the product challenges, but you also have the political barriers that you are going to face, because Microsoft is trying to dominate all of the product categories, but the other vendors are going to create their strategy to combat Microsoft. So in the ERP play, the Microsoft revenue share right now is not clear. Microsoft does not report that, but overall they have very high authority in the ERP play because of their cloud native capabilities of both of these products. The revenue share is going to be likely lower than SAP and Oracle, but it's going to be higher than the other ERP vendors we have in the market. And for those reasons, Microsoft lands at number 3 on our list. Now, number 2 on our list is going to be SAP. The reason why SAP is number 2 is because the majority of the installations that they have is really on-prem. To date, they are trying their best to migrate their workloads to cloud. They have been growing very fast, but they are not there in comparison to Microsoft and Oracle with their cloud native capabilities. SAP also does not have exposure to mid-market, similar to your Oracle and Microsoft. The products that SAP has, they are not as successful in the mid-market. For example, SAP Business One and SAP Business by Design, they are not as cloud native, they are not as complete operationally as your NetSuite is going to be in for the mid-market. So SAP does not have as much play in the mid-market. But at the same time, from the corporate perspective, if you look at the best of breed architecture in the S/4HANA suite, SAP is still very strong compared to other competing vendors. For example, SAP has SuccessFactors, and SuccessFactors competes head-to-head with Workday, and Oracle is not going to have as strong footprint in the HCM space. Now, SAP also has Hybris, which is e-commerce play. Now, Oracle e-commerce and the retail play is not going to be as strong. SAP also has Ariba, which is the second best, software for the procurement and P2P. That makes SAP far likely, to go. So now, all of these products combined and the capabilities combined, SAP's product mix is going to be slightly richer compared to other vendors such as Microsoft and Oracle, and that's why SAP is likely to win in the long term, at least in the enterprise space, because of the best of breed architecture. Once they figure out how to integrate and once they figure out how to have that operational capability as part of their S/4HANA core cloud that they don't have as of today, but we are still very early in the cloud game. So right now, SAP is still ahead overall in the market share, but since they are slightly behind in their cloud native capabilities, they are at number 2 on our list. Now, number 1 on our list is Oracle, and the reason why Oracle is number 1 ERP vendor is because Oracle has 2 major products, which is Oracle NetSuite and Oracle Cloud ERP, and both of them have very rich operational functionality in the cloud, and because of that, Oracle is likely to win, in the cloud game. They are not as strong in the best of breed footprint, but they will be able to create the architectural strategies with companies such as Salesforce, who would probably not like to go with Microsoft because Microsoft is the second, strongest CRM, and then Workday has competition with SAP because SAP has SuccessFactors. So Workday will make sure that SAP is not part of the deal. But overall, if you look at the SAP best of breed architecture, all of these products are going to play together. Typically, customers dictate what best of breed architecture they are going to create, but SAP is going to ensure from the integration perspective, from the architecture perspective, that the customer utilize as many SAP products as possible, and that's exactly what Oracle is going to do. But just because Oracle has far deeper and richer cloud native capabilities for their core ERP and their acquisition strategy is aligned with these products, that's the reason Oracle lands at number 1 on our list. If you enjoyed this video, we are going to be including a lot of resources in the comments. We are going to have a detailed article where you are going to find far deeper insights than communicated in this video. So make sure you guys check it out. If you guys agree, disagree, make sure you guys leave comments. We learn from your comments. We utilize your insights in our analysis and in these lists. So make sure you guys are leaving your commentary and assessment. If you're not happy with the list, we want to hear from you. Also, if you have not subscribed to our podcast, you can find on wbs.rocks. We are present on Apple, Spotify. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel as well. On that note, thank you very much for tuning in on this video. I'll see you in the next video.